Esteemed friend, Mr. John Puzzle, this is video 2 of the series Prophetical Lights, Lamps, Torches, Shining for Our Minds and Hearts. And we have more firm the prophetic word, to which we do well giving heed, as to a lamp shining in a dark place, till the day may dawn, and a morning star may arise in your hearts. Several versions translate light instead of lamp, and 4 Spanish versions translate Antorcha, that is, torch. The scene is Jerusalem in 30 A.D., with the 3 most impressive buildings being Herod's palace, the Roman fortress Antonia, and the jewel of all, the Jewish temple and courts. A prophetical lamp shining for all to see who want to see, and have the dark places of mind, heart, and spirit illuminated, is that of Jesus' prophecy for Jerusalem and the Jewish temple, fulfilled 40 years after proclaimed. The year 30 of the Christian age was unwinding, when a man from Nazareth, Galilee, came out one day from the great complex of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. About 30 years old, his physical presence was not all that impressive. For according to Isaiah 53:2, his physique and general appearance would not be pleasing to people. His name was Jesus, born in Bethlehem, Judea. Despite his unattractive physical appearance and humble condition, he had thousands of followers, demonstrating, as he frequently did, his sublime gift as a teacher par excellence. Well, now, when Jesus and those who accompanied him came to a place where they could contemplate an impressive panorama of Jerusalem, one of his disciples said, "Look, teacher, what large stones and what large buildings." Then Jesus asked him, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down. Truly, I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all things have taken place." Great buildings, plural, observed Jesus himself, and not just one, nor small. The great Jewish temple, with all its enormous patios and porticos, would be destroyed completely before the passing of the generation alive in the year 30. This was the prophecy spoken by that prophet of Nazareth regarding the city of Jerusalem in the 30th year of the 1st century. The diminutive figures in one of the patios represent people. Some of the great buildings Jesus and his disciples viewed. Jerusalem in Jesus' time. Streets paved in stone, tile roofs, commercial buildings, porticos, plazas, markets, stores, and urbanizations, a population of about 85,000. 2 large towers used to protect Herod's palace. Herod's palace. Apartments and urbanizations. Porticos, markets, stores, plazas. The Roman fortress Antonia. The temple proper. Patios of the temple. There was also a Roman theater in this part of Jerusalem. One of the porticos measured 30 feet high, 76 feet wide, and 328 feet long. The orientation was toward the east. Not one stone of all this will be left on another, prophesied Jesus of Nazareth. We select this panoramic, artistical view of Jerusalem to highlight even more the greatness and beauty of the city of Jerusalem in the 1st century. Also to focus on the fulfillment of the prophecy by Jesus Christ on the destruction of that city. Let us take a closer look at the prophecy of the man of Galilee in the context of the environs in which it was pronounced. Jerusalem, in the year 30, the temple, with smoke ascending from the altar of burnt offerings, the Roman fortress Antonia, patios and porticos of the temple. The city of Jerusalem and the whole country of Israel had been under the rule of Romans since the year 63 before the birth of Jesus of Nazareth. Herod the Great, vassal king under Rome, whose reign over Israel began in 37 BC, ending with his death in 4 BC, expanded considerably the area of the Temple Mount, rebuilt the temple itself, and ordered the construction of spacious patios with large, elegant porticos. The Romans did not want to destroy the magnificent Jewish temple, nor the great Antonia fortress, where a contingent of Roman soldiers were quartered, charged with the security of Jerusalem, neither the commodious, beautiful palace of Herod. Not even all the Jews were fanatically opposed to the presence of Roman officials and soldiers in Jerusalem, a good number of them forming the Herodian party, an enormous complex, that of the Temple Mount, for its time frame of the 1st century, occupying 356 acres, 144,000 square meters. Enormous, beautiful stones, the largest in the retaining walls weighing up to 628 tons, while the average weighed about 28 tons. Astounding prophecy of a truth, that of the humble Galilean prophet. The days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down. It would happen before that generation passed. Any ordinary citizen of that time and place would surely think that only some deranged, self-appointed prophet with a screw loose would be so bold as to prophesy the total destruction of such great works, constantly guarded by officials and soldiers of the powerful Roman Empire. Was Jesus such a prophet? Multitudes of Jews and Romans thought so in those days of the year 30. Catastrophic events occurring 40 years later in Jerusalem would prove them totally mistaken. Do you perchance think Jesus was a harebrained prophet? Stick with me to see what really happened. What large stones! What large stones, observed the disciples of Christ. Large stones indeed. In the photograph, Galen Wimmer stands beside the largest stone in the retaining wall of the Temple Mount, one of the 4 that made up the master line. It measures 44.6 feet long by 16 feet wide by 11.5 feet high and weighs between 567 and 628 tons. How it was hewn out and moved to an exact location is another story worth telling. A rectangular, smoothly quarried stone, huge, 1,256,000 pounds. Today, these stones are just where they were placed by the workers of King Herod the Great, a few years before the birth of Jesus Christ. If you travel to Jerusalem, you can go where they are, stand beside them, and touch them. In his prophecies about the destruction of the great buildings of Jerusalem, Jesus did not refer to these enormous quarried stones in the foundation of the retaining wall of the Temple Mount, but to the much smaller quarried stones used to construct buildings, such as the temple and the Antonia fortress. Well then, though many people of that time, perhaps even some of the closest disciples of Christ, might have classified his prophecies about the temple and the rest of the great buildings of the Temple Mount as the fantastical projections of a nonsensical prophet, they were fulfilled to the letter of the law 40 years later in the year 70 A.D. 2 empirical evidences that prove their fulfillment exist today, 1,950 years after the events. In this photograph, stones, many broken, used in the construction of buildings on the upper level grounds of the Temple Mount, lie where they fell 1,950 years ago. In the view, we see the intact, thick wall constructed to enlarge the level area of the Temple Mount. This wall was not an integral part of any of the buildings, neither was the famous Wailing Wall or Western Wall. The prophecy, "Not one stone will be left upon another," did not apply to this wall, rather to the buildings above it. Of those buildings, one stone did not remain on the other that was not thrown down when the taking of Jerusalem was completed in the year 70 by the Roman army. An undeniable fact, a historical fact, a fact verifiable today. A prophecy fulfilled 40 years after it was proclaimed, despite the improbabilities of its fulfillment. Dear Jewish friend, you who does not believe Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah announced by Isaiah, Ezekiel, and other prophets of ancient times, how do you respond to this inexpugnable fact? Dear friend, you of the Gentile race that resist believing in Jesus of Nazareth and following his teachings, how do you respond to this inalterable fact? Consider still another empirical evidence also existing in this day that proves the precise fulfillment of the prophecy made by Jesus Christ. We're looking at the Arch of Triumph of the Roman general Titus, who was commander of the Roman legions when they overcame at last, after 3 long years of furious battles, the tenacious defenders of Jerusalem. This arch commemorates that victory in the year 70. Very, very costly to be sure for the Romans, for great numbers of their soldiers were killed or wounded by the Jews. Images clearly visible of some of the sacred objects of the Jewish temple are chiseled on the interior walls of the arch. For example, the lampstand with its 7 lamps and the table of showbread, part of the spoils of war that victorious Romans took to Rome. Very definitely this Arch of Titus also contributes to the evidences for the fulfillment of the prophecy of Jesus of Nazareth. If you travel to Rome, you can go to that arch, located on the Via Sacra, and see with your own eyes this witness in marble to the fulfillment of the prophecy. A witness that has continued visible and palpable during 1,939 years. It was erected by the Emperor Domitian in the year 81 of the 1st century. It is thus that you and I are face to face with a tremendous, indisputable fact. The unquestionable fulfillment of the prophecy of Jesus Christ of the destruction of the great buildings of the Temple Mount, precisely during the time frame set for it, to wit, before the passing of the generation that first heard it proclaimed. Do we accept this fact, or do we obviate it as if it did not exist? For the fact is a fact, and continues to be a fact, even though we do not believe it. Do you agree? So then the fact of the fulfillment of the prophecy of Jesus Christ is just as real and solid as the heavy rocks laying where they were thrown down on the ancient paved Roman street beside the retaining wall of the Temple Mount, or as the Triumphal Arch of General Titus, constructed of solid marble. As no one in his right mind can deny the existence of those rocks and that arch, nor can he deny the fulfillment of Jesus' prophecy. You still have doubts? Based on what consideration or fact? I would personally like to know. Could it be possible the exact fulfillment of Christ's prophecy was a mere coincidence? While there might be some slight possibility of fulfillment by chance or coincidence, the parameters of the case render void and null that possibility for all practical purposes. Parameters already pointed out in part prove that. For example, the strong Roman presence in Jerusalem that kept a vigilant watch for the security and conservation of the Temple Mount buildings. Equally relevant is the fact that General Titus himself ordered his soldiers not not to destroy the Jewish temple. But so ferociously angry were they because of the deceitful tactics, barbarisms, and great losses they had suffered at the hands of the fanatical Jewish defenders that they disobeyed him. They disobeyed their general, a fact witnessed by the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, who was present in his Annals of Jewish Wars. Given that a fulfilled prophecy effectively constitutes an undeniable fact, it must be conceptualized as an extremely strong reason to believe in its author. A fulfilled prophecy produces faith in the intelligent, rational, objective, mentally honest person in his reasonings and conclusions. A fulfilled prophecy eliminates doubts in such a person, keeping him from falling into the deep, dark well of incredulity. What do we conclude about Jesus Christ, the author of the prophecy? His prophecy, having been perfectly fulfilled beyond the shadow of a doubt, the only logical conclusion is that man of Galilee was a true prophet, and therefore spoke by divine inspiration, that is, by the power of the Creator God, who can see the future before it happens. Another inescapable conclusion becomes quickly obvious to the perceptive, to wit, that man of Galilee was not a liar. Therefore he was, truly and indisputably, who he said he was, and he said he was the Son of God, the promised Messiah. Esteemed Jewish friend, what do you say about that? Is it possible you would be so brave as to deny or simply dismiss the incontrovertible fact set before you? The prophecy of Jesus of Nazareth was fulfilled, true or false. Mr. Gentile, Lady Gentile, you who does not believe in Jesus or in the Bible, that perhaps makes fun of God and Christians, or maybe halfway believes, your soul eaten up with doubts that leave you on the edge of pure atheism. What do you have to say? You are face to face with a set of great facts that your doubts, derisions, and incredulity absolutely cannot make disappear. Will you accept them, making the corresponding changes in your moral, spiritual life? Or will you coldly discard them, condemning yourself to eternal consequences? When, as a result of the light shining on mind and spirit through fulfilled prophecy, the day star of understanding arises in the heart of Jew or Gentile, the next steps to be taken are: believe in God and Christ, repent of disbelief and all other sins, and be baptized, that is, be immersed in water for the forgiveness of sins. Thus, being born of the water and the Spirit, you become a new person, raised up to walk in newness of life. These are the steps Jew and Gentile alike should take. I hope you have found profitable this presentation. Please pardon any defect. May you enjoy good health, and may your soul prosper. My name is Dwayne Shapley, teacher and evangelist for the Lord and His Church. Titles? No, rather, functions in the kingdom of God. For more than 2,000 subjects in various formats, covering an ample diversity of knowledge, mostly of a spiritual kind, www.editoriallapaz.org. The great majority in Spanish, 50-plus titles in English.